The risk when you hit send on the tweet before you make sure you're streaming. It is Saturday. It is live before lock. It is your old pal Emac joined by one fast Eddie Fear as we are coming to you all with a later start time than typical. It's a 7:30 lock tonight, and we have just 4 games for the second Saturday in a row, Eddie. I'm not sure what this is unless the old association is a little nervous about going against some of these college football championship games, but there's only a couple left to be played today. But we have 6 games tomorrow, so who knows?
All true.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But we are here. We are going. We've got SuperDraft to thank.
I wanted to ask you today, December 7th, a date which will live in infamy.
Yes.
During Pearl Harbor, what branch of the service were you serving in again? And can you describe how that day was for you?
Well, I was in the Merchant Marines.
Got to make that money.
During, during a wartime scenario, one branch controls 3 branches of the military. Who is that, and which are the branches?
I assume it's the Army.
It's actually, I believe it's the Navy.
Go ahead.
It's the Navy.
I was curious if it was some.
Technically, the Marines fall under them, as does the Coast Guard, which is considered a branch of service during.
Sure. That makes tons of sense. My answer is based on the fact that the Air Force originally existed as a branch of the Army.
You are correct.
So I thought that might have been a remnant there, and then I was thinking maybe the Coast Guard somehow got folded under. But that makes sense too. That at least operationally, the Navy plus their lawyers get the most TV dramas.
Indeed, they do. Yeah. Indeed, they do. Sometimes you can go on a bit of a jag while watching it. All right, enough about that. Hey, it's December 7th. Hat tip to our former co-host, Jessica Kleinschmidt. It is her birthday today. And it is my wife's birthday today. A fact I learned this morning that not my wife's. I'm well aware of when my wife's birthday is, but I did not realize until this morning that Jessica had the same birthday. So
I had no idea.
To her. Yeah.
Lovely lady, very intelligent. Enjoy her insight. I wish her nothing but the best. Well done, Jessica. Good for her, and your wife as well. When did you and Jessica tie the knot?
We have not. I've only done shows. Well, I guess I did meet her in person a couple times. I've only done shows with her though.
There was boat jumping.
Yes, there was boat jumping.
She was there for the boat jump the boat jump happened. The same.
Allegedly.
You can all try to forget about it, but the boat jump happened and it was awesome.
Allegedly. I believe the masters of that have been purchased and will resurface when somebody runs for office.
I literally see it, and I watch Manny face plant over the edge of that boat and get the biggest smile on my face. Just every 2 months, it just comes up, somebody links the boat jump, and it's gold. One of those days of my life, including taking Shane to the hospital after he nearly had his foot amputated by the boat propeller. Just one of those days that I look back on and go, yeah, that happened. So.
All right. Hat tip out there to TN Guru. We got 56 minutes. We've got 4 games. Let's start in. We don't want to make you wait. So here's the injury. Injuries. Joel Embiid has a sore hip. Philadelphia is playing Toronto tomorrow. So they are 10.5 favorites against Cleveland tonight, who is on a back-to-back after, I forget what Cleveland did. I'm sure they lost last night. I'm blanking. I'm getting that game and the Indiana game mixed up. But regardless, whatevs, it's Cleveland. Kevin Love is probable.
Cleveland, last night they hosted Orlando and lost.
Kevin Love is probable. He was out last night with illness. They need to start showcasing him for trades.
He's probable to be traded, yeah.
Absolutely. We know that Josh Richardson continues to be out and will be out through the weekend with a bad hammy. We know that Malcolm Brogdon, apparently game time decision. I believe it's a sore pinky finger.
It happened. He jammed, I think it's the finger and into his hand. I could be wrong there, but it was yesterday in that game. They're on a road back-to-back. They played Detroit basketball last night, and today they're at the Knicks. So, but he hurt himself in the game yesterday.
All right, let's see. Continuing along, Aaron Baines still out for Phoenix. Jakar Sampson is out for Indy. Wayne Ellington, not that it matters, is out for the Knicks. Also out for the Knicks, David Fisdale. We're going to talk about that, or we're going to talk about how we divine what the hell is going to go on there. Dave from Slack chat has provided a $4.99 super chat. More treats for Boban. Dave's having a nice year with the old DFS. If you guys want to see someone who's disciplined in what they're doing, Dave has a thing working out with Quince, particularly on FanDuel, where he has done quite well, both in basketball. Great movie.
Great movie. Yeah, Trey Stone, Matt Park, the whole
basketball, but he had a nice little move there with baseball as well. Baseball variants a little tougher for those that play single lineups. But back to tonight, Aaron Baines out, Daniel House starting. That puts McLemore back to the bench.
That was expected. They basically came out and said that after the last game that McLemore would be returning to the bench and House would go back to starting. So
Tyson Chandler out with
nope. He was. Now he's out. Sorry. He was in, then out, then out. Like, he's moved around a lot today. There was he was upgraded to will play and then got moved. It's basically irrelevant with all hands on deck for that team, but he is out.
Yes. Well, could have been revenge for 7 minutes of ceremonial time.
Sometimes I get revenge on my wife in 7 minutes.
There you are. We all have our different roles. Mike Conley out again with a bad hammy. Dylan Brooks, game time decision, sore shoulder. And then Kyle Anderson trending towards doubtful. He's missed a couple games with a sore heel. That gets us into where we are. Have we gotten a starting lineup yet for Philly?
We have one for just the Knicks. No, we don't have one for Philly. I would set off about 17 Google alerts for me. That's the really interesting piece of information. I'll go on record as saying most likely is... that's a good place to start. So this is the fifth? Yeah, this is the fifth game of the year that Joel Embiid has set out for one reason or another. All four of the previous ones, you had Richardson there, as well as Horford, Harris, and Simmons. So this is the first time that so this is a somewhat unique situation, or at least unique within the context of this year. And we have, I think it is, you got some real background noise there, Mac. Have you changed something? Like there is a hell of a hum.
I'm gonna try not to screw up my microphone, but I'm gonna move it closer to me. The fan's working overtime on my computer for some reason.
Oh yeah, that's much better now.
All right.
There we go.
We'll give that a try.
Brilliant, my friend, brilliant. So I imagine you get most likely Korkmaz and Thibault starting. They're still fairly big now. It's a matchup you do need to size up for a little bit if Kevin Love is in there. But it's a really interesting spot between these two teams. We've actually this is the, I believe, third meeting between these two teams this year. And what we've seen previously is that they move Simmons around to cover other people, and Sexton has gotten sort of the bonus spot where he's been fairly productive by Colin Sexton standards, and ends up getting matched up frequently against, say, Furkan Korkmaz and things of that nature, where that's sort of the only hole in this defense is more or less the way it goes. And it's interesting to see where that goes now, because I still think you get cross guarding with Simmons playing down, and you probably get, I think you have Matisse Thybulle and Furkan Korkmaz start, and you get Thybulle out there now on Colin Sexton. And I ranked Cedi Osman again. Yesterday, I gave him a couple mentions as a guy I thought could randomly get there. This doesn't mean I want a massive amount. I want even less than the 12 or 15% of Brolo I wanted last night, which apparently dug me an early grave. But, I'd have Cedi Osman's going to be, I don't know, 6% owned on a 4-game slate. I'd have 10 or 12 or something. I can see him getting towards another decent game. There's going to be some very chalky value here. Possibly Aaron Holiday. But I'm interested in pivots away from Holiday and these Sixers guys as an entirety. It's hard to imagine one of the Sixers guys not turning out to be decent, but potentially as a second option in the best possible lineup, you get, Aaron Holiday, obviously, but maybe, a guy along the lines of, I think Cedi is the first Cav I'd go to in that spot, followed by Clarkson. All of this gets pretty crappy and low ownership if Kevin Love is back in, which appears to be the expectation at this point. But there's a couple interesting pivot spots when you get to that value. I need to take a look at where ownership sits right now. But I have a non-zero amount of interest in Chetty Osman today, which I think I've mentioned him twice this year, and it went really well. He got 2 mentions on the show yesterday, and was a random but critical piece of taking down some decent funds yesterday. So, and he's in general looked better the last couple weeks. If you either watch him or just sort of game log it, you can see that the number of shots he's taken a game has been climbing from high single digits of 7, 8, 9. You're getting more 12, 13s. So obviously the matchup not brilliant, but often gets the blowout run, and I would have a non-zero amount of Chetty.
So,
but I would say there's also there's a non-zero chance with Love in that you get a Kyle O'Quinn start here.
All right.
Now, I don't think it's likely. And again, this is obviously a 7:30 p.m. game. So this will handle itself largely pretty well. We'll find out, and we can talk about it then. But I'm not shocked if it happens. So the later it gets, start to have a Kyle O'Quinn plan. I don't think it's likely, but in the size of this matchup, I can see it happening. O'Quinn hasn't played more than, I recall, a 15 and an 18-minute game. Maybe there's another one in there.
Oh, I've got it for you. He has not seen the court in the last 6 games.
It's been 7 or been.
He has
like
2
6 games
in the last 2 blowout victories for Cleveland. He saw 9.4 minutes against Miami. Or last 2 uplift victories for Cleveland. He saw 9.5 minutes.
For Cleveland,
read that backwards. Sorry, 9.5 against Miami, 6.5 against the Cavs. Those are 2 of his 3 highest minute totals on the season.
Yeah, he's not gone. I have no interest if he's not starting. I'm perfectly happy to point that out there. That being said, I'm not shocked if they decide, hey, we want to go a little bigger here, and we'll size up and Kyle O'Quinn gets a spot start. I don't think it's likely. I think most likely scenario pretty far would be Korkmaz and Thibault, and then who are the 2 guys who have been getting the Jay Rich spot starts at various times during the year, and then Ennis starting over one of the 2 of them is possible, but I think it's much more likely he continues his role in the second unit. So, but wouldn't be shocking. And the later the news gets, start tinkering and have a plan there. But basically, just having an open 3K spot on the bottom of your lineup for Aaron Holiday will hopefully cover most of these contingencies, which could turn into Kyle O'Quinn, positions allowing, and so on.
All right, without knowing the starting lineup, and we will circle back to it when we actually get it, but can you rank Ennis, Korkmaz, and Thibault for those that are starting to build their shell lineups?
It's site dependent for me. On FanDuel, it's Thibault by a pretty significant measure. On DK, they're much closer due to the it really changes the projection by a couple points for him. Downward due to steals and blocks, and upward for the other guys due to made 3-pointers, which are more likely to get out of Ennis and Korkmaz. So FanDuel, they're also not the same position on FanDuel, and I assume they're all basically the minimum price on Yahoo. So I imagine on Yahoo, I have Thibault pretty comfortably on top. On FanDuel, setting aside position inequality, and I think he's also the most expensive. I think he's like 4K at small forward, and you have like Korkmaz at minimum at shooting guard, so that gets a little more complicated. But DK, where you're basically, there aren't any positions, I have the ball very close. So for me, it would be almost just purely an ownership reaction at that point. I like having one. It is hard to imagine that these 3 guys playing collectively, I think I have between 88 and 90 minutes as an entirety, that one of these guys in a very good matchup doesn't get there. I am least inclined towards Ennis in a matchup. Well, I think Ennis correlates worst with a blowout. And let me check my wallet real quick on something. Yeah, the 76ers have trouble closing out and blowing out bad teams, but there's they've played the Cavs twice this year. One time they did blow them out by 20, give or take a point or 2. The other time it was a very close game. I honestly can't remember who won, but it was in the 90s. They had like a 96-94 game in the other one. It was a really ugly basketball game, which is not terribly surprising. Neither of these teams incredibly fast, and if you get a bad shooting night out of Philadelphia, it's gonna get fugly in a hurry. That being said, it is difficult for me to issue in any way not having at least one of Al Horford, Tobias Harris, or Ben Simmons in my lineups. It's really hard to imagine one of these guys not being superlative on this slate. I don't know if I'd prefer one or two. It's probably two. And this is a rare spot in which I don't entirely eschew three. I think, especially if this game stays close and you have 5 76ers or 4 76ers, which are those 3 studs in a value or those 3 studs in 2 value, I think that works out just fine. Especially when you look into guys like both Simmons and Thibault, for example, can make plenty of fantasy points without scoring. And Horford, by the way. And this is a team that does turn over the ball quite a bit by possession, maybe not per game because of how slow they play. But yeah, I am curious. I mean, let me take a look at some ownerships right now. I imagine we have all those guys fairly high. Right now we have Horford at the top. I agree that per price on DK, he is the best. Simmons second. So we have Horford at 41. Simmons at 35. And how far down am I going to Tobias Harris? Tobias Harris at 21. I would then prefer Tobias Harris. If you trust in this ownership, which I do, I think these are about right. I do expect Harris to be the lowest owned of them. The issue tonight is that there are really 5 somewhat to very expensive priority plays that are not cheap. I don't mind the second tier of guys. Capella, I like. Gobert, I like. Sabonis, I like. I like all those guys a lot. Devin Booker, I like a whole lot. But I really like the 3 guys on the 76ers and Simmons, Harris, and Horford, James Harden, and Donovan Mitchell. I really like those 5 players. And I would focus heavily on a core, constantly having 3. And if value opens up, 4 of those guys in a whole lot of lineups. And that would include certain lineups where you end up with all 3 76ers guys, because it isn't crazy that those other 2 games turned into a blowout or that those 3 guys just are still simply superior. Again, Joel Embiid is a usage monster, and when you take him out of there and replace him, where some of those minutes goes to guys who are offensively anemic like Matisse Thybulle, even relative to Josh Richardson, those guys all look extremely good, and this matchup is very, very good as far as fantasy points allowed. Again, pace isn't brilliant, but it's a great spot. So those are the 5 guys where I'm like, I really want to have a ton of those guys. And for that reason, if I'm building 150 lineups right now, my biggest concern is that I end up underexposed to Capella, Gobert, Westbrook, Valanciunas. So just some early thoughts on it, but I guess we're sort of game by gaming, so I'll come back to earth and stay on this one.
Perfect. Here's our exit. This is a $2 super chat from Tyler Hitchcock.
Sure.
7,400 left on DK. Would you look to Tobias Harris or would you go to Rudy Gobert?
Due to the very similar ownership, I think we have Gobert higher. I believe we have Gobert higher there. We have Gobert higher there right now by 8%. I will go on record as saying I don't think that's correct. I think they will. And again, I get half of these right and half of these wrong. Very frequently, I'm wrong, and the ownership rankings are just wrong. I think Tobias Harris will be a little higher than he is currently listed, and I think Gobert will be a little bit lower. Now, part of the issue that causes me to second guess that is that you need to play a center. And you can obviously put Horford in at center, and a lot of people are going to do that. But just the needing to play a center, you are going to get more Capella and Gobert for that reason than I think you would in a true positionless system. So this is one of those times where, yeah, you're going to get some number there. But I do still expect their ownerships to be closer than 8% apart. As far as I would probably play... I have them projected like within a point between Harris and Gobert, so this is a really tough spot for me. So you have Gobert and Valanciunas, who have actually played each other quite a bit also third meeting this year between the Grizzlies and the Jazz. 99% sure. Yeah. And they played once in the spring, which was, Valanciunas onto the Grizzlies by that point, and they've played previously in his Raptors tenure. And Valanciunas is much more boom busty in those matchups. I mean, he's busty every day, but he's much more boom busty. Gobert is really solid in that spot, and Gobert's price has come down to a really tolerable 7,300. So while you have had some very good Gobert against Valanciunas games, just because you get a lot more action at the basket, it is not difficult. I generally like both those guys today due to the absence of Ja Morant and the potential absence of Dillon Brooks. These things really lead me to think it is very possible that this game happens around the basket a lot, which just turns into blocks, rebounds, points. Like those guys, head towards the ceiling. And then if you look at these games, Valanciunas, you get 25 to 60, and Gobert, you get a whole lot of 40s. But that doesn't feel too bad at $7,300 at a somewhat wanting center position. This long way by saying, I don't currently have an answer for your Gobert Valanciunas question. It's really as ridiculous as this sounds, or your Gobert Harris question, pardon me. It's in a very odd twist of fate here. I think I've almost as a virtual tie right now, looking at everything: ownership, production, boom, bust, ceiling, floor. Dillon Brooks going out probably tilts it enough to Gobert for me, as weird as that sounds. So at the moment, I have no objection. I would say that probably what I would use to make the determination at this point is number of other 76ers. Do you have Horford and Simmons right now? Then I'll probably play Gobert because I'd rather play 2 than 3 of those players. If you have just one of them, yeah, I'd be sitting on basically a virtual tie.
All right.
Was that a super chat you said? Because he got his money's worth.
He got his money's worth there. That's
got like a minute $1.
It's a very good question, and kind of hit on some of the other decision points.
It's a great question. Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
So let's look at the Knickerbockers here. I'm looking.
Do we have to?
Well, we kind of have to. So
I like Mike Miller, by the way, as a coach and a spokesperson. I've heard him speak a couple times, and he's very eloquent, very verbose, very loquacious.
He spent a chunk of time in college, both as an assistant and a head coach. Yep. Then he coached the Spurs. Yep. Their G League team, and then he was with the Westchester Knicks most recently before getting on the bench at the Knicks. I had to look him up because I was teasing Adam last night on the Early Bird podcast if it was Mike Miller, the basketball player,
the one who looked exactly like Laufey.
Ooh.
Go look up Mike Miller, the basketball player.
That's interesting.
If I haven't seen Mike Miller in 4 years or something, but I remember seeing Mike Miller and then the next day, like seeing Laufey live the first time. I'm like, hey, it's Laufey.
That is a good one. All right. So for starters, well, we have
I gotta go look because that may have been like a fever dream or something. There he is. He doesn't look all right. He looks like an older, weathered Laufey. I guess it's kind of rude to Laufey. Laufey's a very good looking man. This guy looks like he's hit the pipe a couple too many times relative to Laufey, but there are strong similarities between their rugged good looks, their tendency towards short hair on the sides, longer on the top. Both fine looking gentlemen.
All right, let's talk Knicks here, then we'll talk a little SuperDraft. But we've got starting lineup: Frankie Ntilikina, R.J. Barrett, Marcus Morris Sr., Julius Randle, Taj Gibson.
Yep. So disappointing, but not unexpected.
Who did you want to see in there? DSJ?
Not Taj Gibson.
Oh well.
Starting Taj Gibson is like he
has nudes of James Dolan, so that's why he's in the starting line.
Taj?
Yeah.
Taj is just a fine basketball player. You just know who Taj is, and you're not winning shit this year. Let's go. These guys need some time. I want Mitch. Give me more Mitch. Mitch is a skinnier, less refined Shaquille O'Neal on a good day. Like, I want to see my ceiling Mitch Robinson and stop taking it away from me. From Summer League the year back, talking about him, skipping a year of college, his post-high school stuff. Like, I've been on the Mitch train, perhaps conducting it for a long time now. Give me my Mitch, damn it. I don't need any Bobby Portis. I know who Bobby Portis is. Perfectly equitable scorer, wretched defender. I know who Taj Gibson is. Very solid guy. Love to have him coming off the bench for me. let's go. Load up on the Mitch train. Fill that sumbitch up and show me what we can get out of him. So Mitch being the most disappointing piece for me. I'm fine with Frankie. I'd like to see more Frankie. RJ Barrett, obviously, some development to be done there. Marcus Morris, and I say this all from a position of naivete, by the way. I'm not working in the Knicks front office. I'm not on the coaching staff. I am not overpaying, some might say, Marcus Morris after stealing him away from the Spurs and that whole thing. And so the necessity to play Marcus Morris a little bit. I'm not feeling that, pressure. Like they just paid Taj. They just paid Marcus Morris. These are not irrelevancies in determining who gets minutes on the court. But if I'm coaching this team, I have Frankie's just fine. RJ Barrett, Kevin Knox, Julius Randle is fine. Julius Randle has not yet reached his ceiling, and I think he may be close to it, which is sad because I thought he could be a monster someday. But someone's got to be like halfway decent on this team, and Mitch Robinson, like that's the starting five I would run here. I'm almost willing to say Kevin Knox is just trash. I'm not quite there yet on him either. He's all of 20, might be 19, but like he's a baby. Let's give him some more time. But what's your point? Like, ooh, you started your best team and now you're favored to lose by 12 as opposed to 15 if you started the players who need development. Like, let's go. Get working.
Anyway. Knox is turned 20 in August.
I was about to say, yeah. Would make sense.
So would you go Robinson or Turner straight up raw points and going against each other?
What a great question. I would have to take Miles Turner at this point. Miles Turner is 5'3" now. I thought it's a really small price. And this is the Knicks. So this is a guy who can hit some sort of block ceiling. Like he's not someone I'm getting to in cash, but I think he got up to an A in GPPs for me, which is not something that happens for Miles Turner very frequently. No, did I keep him down at a B? I kept him down to no, he did get up to an A. He and Sabonis are the only ones, I'm sorry, and Aaron Holiday, because obviously that could happen, are the only three guys who got ranked A. He is the fifth most expensive pacer. Like he's not been great this year. The shot has suffered a little bit. He's really dependent on his blocks. There are issues with it, but 4-game slate, $5,300 Miles Turner is will very possibly do better than, say, I don't know, Brooke Lopez did yesterday for $100 less.
If you were playing one FanDuel lineup, would you give up your center spot to Mitch Robinson?
Trying to remember the FanDuel price. I gotta look.
It's more for me. It's kind of opportunity cost because you're losing out on Capella, Gobert, Valanciunas, etc. Turner, even.
Yeah, I don't.
That was just. It was.
I think question. There are again. I don't have a problem doing it. When you say would you is an interesting spot. If I'm building one FanDuel lineup, I built one FanDuel lineup. Currently, Clint Capella is in center for me. Now, that's not necessary, and the more time I looked at I like this lineup. It's pretty darn unique, but I haven't messed with it in about an hour, and I only have Horford. I have 3 of the 5 guys we were talking about. This lineup has Harden, Donovan Mitchell, and Horford in it, and then basically Capella and lots of value pieces. I like the Harden Capella correlation. I'd like just Horford who gets in there at power forward, but there's it'd be something to work with. But I don't have an issue your question was about Miles Turner. The price is still perfectly equitable at $6,400, and against the Knicks and against Randall, who can somewhat haphazardly crash into the basket. The play will gravitate inward a little bit due to the presence of Ntilikina. The blocks upside is there. So I have absolutely no issue should you end up with Miles Turner at center. I don't think he gets in my first lineup, but yeah.
All right. What about Robinson? So that was there. That was the.
Oh, your question was Mitch. It was
mine. Was Robinson.
I think. Yours was Robinson. He's at 58. Same theory. Again, this is sort of a haphazard statement. I would probably rather Miles Turner, who will get the start in 32 minutes and is, a little bit more expensive. But on a 4-game slate, am I happy to play Mitch Robinson? Yeah. He played the last, pile of minutes. I think if I had to guess at one rotational move to be made here, well, the first would have been not starting Taj, so I'm all for that. But the second one would have been just more minutes for Mitch, which had been coming anyway. So like you can write that narrative two different ways. One can be that looking at the starting lineup, he's continuing the trends and the plans that Fizdale had put in place to some degree. He's got the same starters. Mitch had been seeing more time. And two being he's player development coach, and Mitch should see more time at the expense of, Taj and Bobby Portis. So I think 24 minutes is a reasonable guess for Mitch. And even at 24 minutes, I have tons of interest in him. He's a guy who can get 6 blocks in 24 minutes. And on FanDuel, that clearly makes sense. So I probably am slightly bigger fan, even with the $600 of Miles Turner, but I'd absolutely be exposed to Mitch Robinson in some degree.
All right, so shout out to the 2,400 people watching the show. Also, a shout out here to SuperDraft, sponsor of Live Before Lock on Saturdays. Tonight they've got a NBA slate for the 4-gamer. They've got some contests that look like they will overlay just a little bit. Tomorrow it gets even better over there. They're running their $50,000 red zone. That has been overlaying by about 20%, meaning it only fills up 80 or so percent. This is their marketing plan because they want to entice us to come over and play there. What is different about them? Well, I'm glad you asked. So let me drop this link in chat right now. If you come in on that link, deposit $100 and use the promo code AWESOMO, you will get $20 immediately in your account from SuperDraft. That is SuperDraft Cash, and that will play through first. So that is definitely worthwhile. What is the difference over there? They have their exclusive multiplier game mode. So what it does is it lets you pick any player that you want. This offers countless lineup combinations. We are not constrained by salary caps over there.
Countless. It's not countless at all.
Okay, so it is
I'm
possible.
just saying, it's like there's like 8 spots or whatever, and there's this many players in the pool. Not only is it countless, it's very easy to count. I'm ashamed of you for your mathematical vagary.
All right. Well,
I'm just messing with you.
I got my wife an infinity ring when I proposed to her because the diamonds go all the way around, because that means my love is forever. At least that's what that's what I read in the brochure. There you go. All right. Now that we've had fun with that, back to SuperDraft. So they've got NFL, NHL, NBA. They've had PGA and MLB. Those contests will come back when those sports are in session, but definitely check it out. We have projections for this. So here's how the multipliers work. You get somebody like Christian McCaffrey. He has a multiplier of 1. You get somebody awesome like, I don't know, Patrick Laird, perhaps less than awesome. He might have a multiplier of like 3.5. I'm making these numbers up purely for demonstration.
Do they go over 2 now?
I remember they do go over 2.
Do they? Because at their original product at the beginning of the season, I think everyone was constrained between 1 and 2, which they shouldn't have been. So I'm happy they're still innovating and making their product better. Bravo.
Correct. Well, they also have single game slate, so I could be mixing that with the single game slate because that was the last one I played. But they did have people that had 2x or higher. So there you go. There's their other thing they've done. They've done single game NFL, so they've got you covered everywhere. Again, they're going to be continuing this overlay through NBA. And that is their marketing plan. So check them out. Come in through our link. Use the promo code AWESOMO when you make your deposit. You'll get that $20 immediate bonus if you put in $100. If you don't come in on our link and use the promo code AWESOMO, that bonus is only $10. So it would be better to come in through our link. All right, Eddie. Looking to the other side of the game here, we'll probably have to circle back on this
Simmons, Quirk, Maz, Harris, Mike Scott, and Al Horford will start. I had that as a possibility, but it was well down my list.
Oh, Mike Scott. Well, we know a lot about Mike Scott from what he did with Washington and Atlanta. He can fill it up in a hurry, or he can disappear. This game is better suited for him. He is like, I don't know, a homeless man's version of Tobias Harris. How's that?
You're selling him a little bit short. I like Mike Scott.
I liked him when he was with the Wizards. Believe me, I thought he was a fine guy off the bench because he's a good 3-point shooter and he looks kind of scary. So.
That's your subtle denigration of urban culture is not lost on me.
No, he looks scary. He's one of our friend Jay Walker's favorite players too, from his time in Atlanta. So
he was. We
would laud him on our shows and remind people.
He was really good for the Clips too. Before they moved him off in the Bobby Toby trade.
It's good.
I'm a fan of.
So how does this?
I'm a fan of Mike Scott.
Yeah, the next 5 questions are going to be.
Give me a minute.
Okay.
I'm running a whole rotation and seeing how I think this goes. I was close with the Kyle O'Quinn thing, but they're going with Mike Scott to stay a little bit bugger. So yeah, this affects obviously Tybal and some number of other things. So please stand by.
All right. While you're talking about that, I'm also gonna talk. Here are my notes here for you guys. This is from the Cash Game Building Blocks article. I'll drop this into chat. These are always fun because I try to put teaching lessons in these for you all. The interesting one I have tonight is for Matisse Thybulle. So in his 4 years with the University of Washington, he was started almost the entire time. He was an adequate scorer, 43% field goal percentage is his career. 30, just shy of 36 from 3-point range, and 78% from the field or from free throw line. He's taken 9 field goal attempts in his past 2 games, but he's only topped 5 field games once this season. It was in the second or third game of the year, and he had 8. He's letting other people score because there are much better people at doing it out on the court, and he is a rookie, and he is just happy to go for the steals, assists, and or guard people. So that he's not a bad player or a bad shooter. He is just not taking shots. Tonight, he might have a chance at 5, 6, or 7. So that's where his upside is.
Yeah, so it sort of screws everybody. Is my takeaway here? The more I look at this, so okay, that's it. And then the blowout run would be these guys. Okay. I now have by a very small margin the highest projection on DraftKings and probably on FanDuel still. Well, it's going to be closer. Yeah, so I have Furkan Korkmaz as the best of these plays now. Mike Scott gets a tougher matchup. It's a difficult rebounding spot for him. And I have him at 23 minutes. I am not confident in that figure. But it does narrow the minutes range on Ennis and Thybulle a little bit. On FanDuel, I would probably rank these guys price and position included. Korkmaz, Thybulle, Scott, Ennis. On DraftKings, I would probably rank them now Korkmaz, Ennis, Thybulle, Scott. I don't think there is likely, and especially with the ownership, Scott is going to come in as my least favorite of these 76ers value players, however I look at the math. I think he ends up being too high owned. I think it'll be similar to these other guys, and he just doesn't quite project as well for matchup or production. And I think there's a chance he even exceeds them because he's had big games in the past. I'm not opposed to playing any, even if he plays 20 minutes, he can get 25 fantasy points, and I think he costs 3,200 if memory serves, and I'm sure he's the minimum on FanDuel or close enough to it. I think it's fine to have some exposure, but there's a lot of value plays on this slate who project better for me, not just similarly, better, and will be lower owned. So I would have very little Mike Scott at this point. And I say that being a fan of the actual player, but that aside, yeah, that's where I come down.
All right, Orion Lips, shout out for the $1 super chat. I'm looking for a question. If you
it's all, it also tilts the balance a little bit on Tobias Harris. It would still be a net negative for him. His scoring in the matchup, spending more time up at the 3 is greater. A couple of his other peripherals are greater, but the rebounding side does take a noticeable hit. And already a dubious rebounding matchup at this spot. So it's probably enough to tilt my rankings in a couple places based on price. But on DK, for example, I would now have Horford, Simmons, Harris as far as a raw points per dollar projection versus previously Harris and Simmons were very close for me. And that moving him out there and also some endangerment of the minutes is tacit now as well. Not massive, but enough that would bump him down a peg for me.
All right. Someone is saying that FanDuel has the green check mark next to Aaron Holiday. Just be very, very careful when following the sites. They're using the same information that we're trying to find, but they're not as nimble and quick.
Yeah, having worked on DFS sites for many years, they have a stat provider, the same stat provider as DraftKings. I think it is Stats Inc. They're the ones who are doing it, and there is a guy doing it, and that guy, usually, in my experience, dealing with Opta and any number of other is some asshole looking at the internet. There is not some secret pipeline to NBA headquarters, or they don't have a guy in the locker room of every NBA team talking with trainers. Just comes through on the feed. So
Yes.
That check mark is you would be better off if you ignored the check marks than paid attention to them. They will misrepresent reality more frequently than they will spoil something for you.
Yes, very correct. It's also fun having emails yelling at those people, but that's okay.
Because I feel bad from this.
No. They're poor interns.
For some of the smaller leagues, there are literally guys with a piece of paper going assist, rebound, assist, rebound, and then they like fix it later when they get the officials. But for some of the smaller leagues who don't have like in-game reporting, it's a whole thing. We should talk about basketball more. We're 19 minutes out.
All right. Anything else from game 2? Shall we move on to game
Let's move on. Let's not move on for the moment. Move through some stuff pretty quick.
Let me get up to this here. We've got Phoenix and Houston. This is the delicious game. Let's wrap up anything with Memphis and Utah. You've kind of hit on it 6 different ways. Is there anything you want to really mention? We've covered the pivot position there pretty well. You mentioned Donovan Mitchell, one of the better plays on the slate. Now with Conley out. Where are you on DeAnthony Melton? How are you with Joe Ingles?
I would have a couple shares of Tyus Jones in the event that he starts again. It is a 4-game slate. He is going to be perilously unowned. It's a terrible matchup. But he is so much better than he's been this last week, and I have no reason to expect it not to improve. He was legendarily efficient last year, as in had something close to, for someone who played that many minutes and dished out that many assists, the best assist to turnover ratio in history or close to it. Like, was phenomenally efficient. Now, this is not the same team. This is a hard, long story short, I would still have, if I find out he's starting and can swap to it, I would make sure I still have 5% of Tyus Jones. It is not crazy for him to have 35 fantasy points at his 4,600. The price is not cheap enough anymore. Same thing with DeAnthony Melton. Don't love any of these guys. Both of them get a boost in the event that Dylan Brooks is out. I would have some Grayson Allen. I didn't currently rank him because the sense I'm getting is that Dylan Brooks will quite possibly play. You can always play Jaren Jackson in any matchup. He carries enough of an upside because of all the things he can do, but obviously not a great spot. And Valanciunas absolutely could play 31 minutes and take 21 shots here and put up 58 fantasy points. So I would make sure to have some GPP exposure here for Memphis. He is the only player who got any A's for me, as he got an A in tournaments only. Talking about Utah, real quick, I love Donovan Mitchell. This spot, specifically, the 1-2 in this matchup with Memphis has served up some delicious fantasy games all year. He will not be owned enough relative to what he should be. The last Jazz game, Suns, Conley, I was incredibly tepid on the Jazz. I said, these guys are all going to be over-owned. The matchup with the Lakers is legit. People just are not, I don't know, looking at the same numbers I am, but taking players in inefficient spots against the Lakers when they're popular is not going to work out for you in the long run. That being said, them all being pretty bad in that game will artificially reduce their ownership. I am making sure in every lineup to have Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, or Bojan Bogdanovic. I'm making sure every lineup has one of those 3 Jazz players. I'm a big fan of all 3 of those Jazz players in GPPs. Obviously, the ownership makes it somewhat nominal as to which one you go to, but Gobert, a separate consideration. But I love Donovan Mitchell. I'm a pretty big fan of Rudy Gobert. They both got double A's for me. I'm a big fan, especially if you're missing one of those guys, of getting Bojan Bogdanovic or Joe Ingles in my lineups. I ranked Emmanuel Mudiay. It's a 4-game slate. It is not impossible that with blowout or with whatever, it sort of follows the Tyus Jones thing. He's 4,000 too. It's not a spot, but I would have in 150 lineups. I would have 2 Emmanuel Mudiay lineups. I would have 2 Dante Exum lineups. I would have 1 or 2 Jeff Green lineups. I would have 1 or 2 Royce O'Neal lineups. But those top 4 guys, massive priorities for me. Joe Ingles, who I liked at his price against the Lakers. I did 4,500 on FanDuel, 4,900 on DK in that bad matchup. Still carried certainly enough of a ceiling. In fact, if you look at the game that Conley started and then left, you saw Ingles off the bench have like, I think 40 fantasy points or something closer to that. This is an even better matchup than that one. The ownership will be, I expect, mid to high teens. I don't have it up right now. I would have more than that. I like Joe Ingles quite a bit, and especially if I'm not playing Donovan Mitchell, I have no issue with having both of them. I have no issue with having 3 guys in there on that team as opposed to 3 guys on Philadelphia. They are all priced very well, and while not getting the rub that you are getting with Embiid out, the new format of this team and the exceptional matchup, similar to the 76ers, gives these guys not as much of a cookie, but definitely a mid-sized Oreo that should keep us very interested.
All right. People are going back and forth on Brogdon. We have reasonable...
Fox Sports Indiana reporting holiday starting just hit me in a tweet.
Yes, so that's where Sean Reeves, you're doing this correctly. Thank you for putting that cited tweet in chat from a legitimate source.
I haven't looked at that, but I have 5 updates right now. It seems incredibly likely. It says he will not play on the broadcast. So at this point, again, we have 13 minutes. It will probably be clarified.
Yep.
Aaron Holiday is today's Ish Smith. I expect he would have been somewhat owned. I had him in the FanDuel placeholder already in front of me at $3,600. He would have had a role. Now, the key news here is he is going to be massively owned in a single lineup. I would strongly consider playing TJ McConnell. TJ McConnell will play if and when this game blows out. It is worth pointing out the Knicks have lost their last 3 games. Let me look up the stat, by an average of 83 points. That may or may not be the actual number, but they're not good. New coach, who knows what the hell that does. But Timothy John deserves some exposure. It really depends what we think Aaron Holiday gets to. This confirmation will say broke 15, 17 minutes before lock. It's a half-hour late slate, which also reduces player attention a little bit. I'm going to guess that you get TJ McConnell at something like 45% on FanDuel and 40% on DK. I suspect I would want, in any cashy sense, much more. In GPPs, probably similarly, I would still want more. I like him much more than Mike Scott, and significantly by any points estimation more than anyone. The closest would be Korkmaz, and without rerunning it because we're short on time, I suspect I would have Aaron Holiday somewhere around 27.5 to 28 fantasy points projected, whereas I have Furkan Korkmaz as the highest of the Philly guys, somewhere closer to 23 or 24. So he's your cash value guy. In tournaments, make sure you have some Timothy John in your lineups. Also not unaffected by Jakar Sampson news as well, but that doesn't need to be gotten into specifically. But get some Timothy John in some of your tournament lineups.
All right, last one before we get to the best game of the night. In this one, do you have any interest in Justin Holiday? FanDuel specifically.
I have interest in both FanDuel and DK, and I ranked him previously without knowing exactly how this situation was going to turn out. He's 39 on DK. I had him ranked as a D and a B. I won't take the minute to update that, but he would probably be a C and a B now. Yes, I have some interest. I had already ranked TJ McConnell. He was a C and a B. He would probably be a C and an A now at 3,400. You can play McConnell and Holiday. They can both easily get there, and they don't just strictly back each other up, even in the situation which we have seen before. This is the 4th game of the year, I believe, off the top of my head, that Brogdon has missed. Of the 3 previous ones, Lamb missed 2 of them. So I would want more. Right. So all told here on the Brogdon news, Aaron Holiday is your best value play total. I would now, I would start to move away from Philly guys to a lot of Philly value to a lot of these guys. They project very similarly, and they're just lower owned. And even the mid-price guys were now Jeremy Lamb gets a very relevant cookie in a very good matchup, and TJ Warren gets a very relevant cookie in a matchup, and Sabonis gets a very relevant cookie in a matchup. So I'm increasing my exposure to obviously those 5 guys. It doesn't really matter a whole hell of a lot for Miles Turner. I'm not saying don't play Miles Turner, but the Brogdon out news basically averages out for him. But yeah, I'm Ownership, I suspect, will still be a little too high, knowing the full field now on Philadelphia relative to Indiana, and I would make some pivots. I'll toy around with my placeholders now, see where I end up.
All right, saving the best for last, we have Houston at Phoenix. If you can play James Harden, you want to do so. He is amazing. We now have the value to make that happen. Clint Capella.
Yeah, he also bludgeons the living crap out of Devin Booker. I haven't looked at specifics today, but he's like Devin Booker guarding him goes poorly. Okay. I have notes here, and literally it bludgeons the living shit I have written down, but I was trying to temper myself a little bit. But yeah, Devin Booker will end up guarding him some extended period of time. Rubio will have more, but it's gone badly. And if someone can look at the head-to-heads, I have a feeling Harden, versus the Suns. Now again, this is not your mother's or your father's son's team, but the absence of Baines is really relevant for their rates, and I've been continuing to watch them, and I'm a pretty big fan of Harden. I don't mind Booker whatsoever. Prefer him on FanDuel where they haven't reacted to his price, but this is an outstanding matchup. This is a Houston team that has been really disappointing defensively. I don't know how to put it other than that. Still really like Booker. Still plenty of fan of Kelly Oubre. So I want to take a minute, go ahead and I want to look at ownership and talk about some of these guys. Let's see if we have an update with all this stuff breaking. We have Horford at 47%. That is higher than I would get. Half is too much on the slate. I like him a lot, but you can we just got a very disappointing Horford game against Washington, which is literally best possible matchup. This is not best possible matchup. I like Horford plenty. Points per dollar is still my favorite player on this team. 47%. If you put stock in that, is too high of a number. Donovan Mitchell 44 is much closer. James Harden 39. I would want more given the value that opened up. Clint Capella 35. Yeah, 78 is too cheap. I suspect I'd have a little less, but we have him at 35 and Gobert at 30. Those numbers both feel pretty good, so that's just fine. Simmons now sitting at 34. That feels just about fine. Joe Ingles 27%. I might even have less at this point. I like Joe Ingles a lot. He's the 7th most owned player on this. Now, that's going to change with Pacers news. I expect it drops him lower, but I'd want more. Bojan, 26. I'd want a little less at this point. Harris, 26. I'd want a little less at this point. Kyle O'Kin, 24. I'd want 0. Literally, he didn't even get the start when it was the big. I'd want 0. And there won't be 24%. I suspect Kyle Quinn will be about 4% owned. So I don't know if we'll get an update, but Kyle Quinn will not be 24% owned, period. The first game of the year, Embiid was out, and Kyle Quinn was 20% owned. And I went, that's a horrible play. I don't think he gets any extra time. They're just going to move Horford down and put in another wing, and that's exactly what they did. And then the next time it went down to 5%. And then the next time it went down to 2%. Because again, we've been through this 5 times now with Embiid. You're not having 24% Kyle O'Quinn. Sabonis is 22. I would now want more if I could do it. Westbrook is 22. About right. I like getting there, especially obviously if I'm in a non-hard lineup. Korkmaz 21. Oubre 20. Mike Scott 18. I would have massively less, if any. Yeah, I would have massively less, if any. Randall 17 is fine. $6,000 flat. It's really a number you can get on top of. Brogdon 16. Obviously, that will still be 2%, by the way, which should be relevant for your calculus as far as how much you bet. 5,300 for Barrett. Again, the opening of the Pacers makes me look that way and a little more stars and scrubsy. So these Barrett plays and these Randall plays get a little bit worse when multiple more cheap plays are opening up for us. Booker 15. I'd have more. Valanciunas 14. I'd have more. Thibault 14. This point, I'd probably have less. Ennis 14, I'd definitely have less. Lamb 14, I'd probably have a little more now. Mitch Robinson 12, fine. Miles Turner 11, fine. Marcus Morris 11, same deal with the other Knicks. At this point, I imagine I push myself more stars than Scrubsy. So I think those guys get out, but it's fine. Morris, Barrett, Robinson, Randall, those are fine as one-ofs. I don't want more than one. Cameron Johnson 4,100. Yeah, that's a whole thing. So it's a whole last game you got. I've had a couple of people tell me today that they thought Dario Saric was in foul trouble. So that's one of the reasons that he lost time that eventually went to Cameron Johnson. That wasn't the whole story. You also had Kelly Oubre actually running some point and backing up Rubio, which is a little weird, which gave Cam Johnson some more time. But while Dario Saric did eventually foul out, he got 2 fouls in the fourth quarter and 2 fouls in overtime. So when you look at him getting yanked in the second quarter, it was after he got, I believe, just his second foul. And he got pulled and lost a lot of his hit, which is one of the reasons I'm fairly low on Dario Saric and ranked him appropriately. And I'm still fine getting to Cameron Johnson. But he's up to $4,100 with all this other value coming around. That is still somewhat dicey. I'm fine getting there. I would rather play TJ McConnell is going to be one of my favorite plays today because he's going to end up at 3% ownership. And there's going to be 7 value guys priced between his price and 3,900 who are more owned, who I project at his level are a little bit less. So again, there's a couple thousand people on this show, so I'm ruining it a little bit. But I would play TJ McConnell over a lot of these guys who, you'll get some time next to Aaron Holiday if history is any indicator. And even if you don't like 22 minutes of him I think he's 3,400 on DK, feels good. So I'd rather play him alongside Aaron Holiday, who is the best value play of the day. Very Ish Smithy, very similar. Not the world's best fantasy producer, but a little worse than Ish, but still perfectly equitable. And again, the flat minimum as opposed to like 36. So yeah, there's my takes on a whole bunch of things.
All right. How are you feeling about... Oh, that's a weird one there. How are you feeling about... Johnson, Check Diallo, and anybody running down the bench for the Suns?
I'm fine with Check Diallo, especially on FanDuel at 3,800. In one lineup, I would probably run Check Diallo over Mike Scott, who I presume is a minimum price power forward. Yes, he's a minimum price power forward. I would probably make that change in a game that could easily blow out and a more fantasy productive guy who will play in the yes, I would probably do that. I could also see playing Jeff Green instead. I could also see playing John Henson instead. But FanDuel specifically, I think on DK Diallo has been boosted a hair. He's up to 38. Usable is the easiest way I can say. I suspect, again, you're going to have a lot of 76ers ownership, and I expect 2, if not 3 of those players to fail fairly significantly. So, yeah.
Horford, how does Horford come out in the wash here? Would you still want him in your lineups?
Yes, I like Al Horford a lot. Okay. I suspect I would have less than what we are looking at because just other things have opened up that feel better. Like I would try to get a little bit more Sabonis and a little less Horford, but do what you got to do.
Are we looking at any reason to not try to get James Harden in the majority of your lineups now that we have all of this value?
No, you are not looking at any reason to do such a thing.
All right. Harden versus Westbrook with the discount. Does it even matter anymore to you?
Yeah, it matters quite a bit. This will push it even more to Harden versus Westbrook. We've opened up more value, so it makes it easier, and your lineup looks less shit getting all the way to Harden. So a lot of people are like, oh, sweet, I can get yeah, it matters to me quite a bit. So I previously at their ownerships was kind of agnostic. That's really tough for me because the spot for Harden is massive, and obviously he's with their discount and the ownership discount, it's roughly proportional for me. So personal preference. I wish I could give you a better answer, but you do you, baby.
All right. Well, let's see if I actually get my lineups in here for me. We are 30 seconds to lock. So go us. Let's see. These are always the moments that make you panic just a little bit.
These are the moments that try men's souls. See, we're on a theme here with World War II.
Well, fortunately, I got my placeholder lineup in.
Well,
I don't think I'm going to get the other one.
You got 19 seconds, my friend.
This makes for fun.
It does make for fun. Little fun.
I have a few more Sixers than I wanted, but at this point I'm going for a little differentiation in my lineups because right now I've got one.
Looking forward to ownership. Oh, it's going to be a great... Oh. That's going to be great.
Oh, I missed it. Damn it.
What did you end up with? What? Well, so this
I got 23 unique lineups. One
Out
of
of your
them is in
150?
95% of my cash.
Okay, what is your lineup in 95% of your contest? I want to hear it.
It ended up being Holiday, James,
Which
sadly
Holiday?
Marcus.
Aaron?
Yeah,
Okay.
Aaron Holiday, James Harden, sadly Marcus Morris, Al Horford, Clint Capella, TJ McConnell, Joe Ingles, and Donovan Mitchell. It's not the worst lineup it could have been.
No, it's not bad at all. I don't mind that lineup whatsoever. That's it's. I think you said in cash.
That's my cash. Yeah.
Yeah, cash. TJ McConnell is a bit specious as a word. I also overuse
I
dramatically.
grabbed one I liked and put it in. So
Again, I'm a big TJ McConnell fan. Just cash probably doesn't land for me a lot of times, but
All right, let's get the old daddy like going here. I have to go watch the playback and see how intently I was staring at my computer screen because we'll see.
Yeah, so this is gonna be a good one. This is gonna be exciting. All right, we got 2 games, 2 of the 4, right?
We have 2 of the 4.
Pacers game and the 76ers game.
All right. So,
there are some other teams, but Pacers and the 76ers.
right. Shout out to chat. They're saying, it's not a bad lineup. I made sure there was a live one in there. That has not always been the case this season.
Oh, you're good.
Remember last Saturday I had to punt on it on the first game and go with the 3 late games. So.
Yeah. Didn't hurt you.
All right, let me download the file here, and we will check this out.
You're gonna have some massive ownership on. People are going to be.
Well, I'm curious because it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Philly because to fix it in the news and to suppress those guys if you're still doing it manually, going to be a little tricky. Oh, all right, interesting. Okay, we have the 4 teams in play: Philly, Indy, Cleveland, and the Knicks.
Yep.
Who is the highest owned Knick?
For me, I was going through the highest owned player, which I was sort of struggling with because it was a.
I saw you bashing my fellow co-hosts in this game for not making this challenging enough, so I threw you a curveball.
Who is the highest owned Knick? It's really interesting because you're going to have reasonable exposure to, like, it's going to be Randall or Morris. I will go with Randall.
It is Randall. Would you like to hazard a percentage?
13.
He is 16.7. Marcus Morris is 15.7.
Okay. Well, then, okay. Then you're going to get some Mitch and some Barrett. They'll be closer to 8 to 10, I would think.
Who's the top owned player?
Of all teams?
Yep, of everybody.
Yeah, this is going to be close for me. I'm going to go with Al Horford.
You are correct.
Okay. I'll go 46.
52.
Yeah, that's too much.
Multi-position.
It's fine. Don't feel. Yeah. Phil's on this. And that's. I'm not always taking that into account, but that's still 52%. There's a lot. That's just a bit too high. That's not dreadful. Like that number, I think should be around 45. So it's not like, oh my god, it's wickedly out of, frame with where it should be. But yeah, that's a little higher. Usually, it's rare that the chalkiest player on the slate isn't a little bit too chalky, but it's really, really close. So I'm very ambivalent on Al Horford.
All right, I'm dropping the SuperDraft link in the chat one more time just for those of you, since we still got 1,600 people in here. Thank you for sticking around. We do appreciate it. This one helps you guys. You can get in there coming in on this link using the promo code AWESEMO. If you deposit $100, they will give you $20 immediately in SuperDraft cash. It is automatic, and then that will go in first into your contest. It is multipliers, not salary cap, and their big contest is $10 tomorrow, $50,000 prize pool. They are expecting it to fill at 75 or 80%. That is intentionally sized that way to give everybody overlay. All right, DFS Poppy. No, I'm not mad at I'm not besmirching your Marcus Morris senior play. I just have 100%.
Right.
That's my only problem with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with any of those 4 decks. I probably don't want to. You can certainly spin having the guys out on the opposition makes it a little more likely that game stays close, which you certainly want when you're running one of the starters at the very least. With Mitch, you probably want the game to blow out.
All right.
He's played in blowout run the last 2 times. So
we've got who do you think number 2 is? Who does number 2 work for?
Number 3, I'm having trouble with. Number 2 is gonna be Aaron Holiday.
Correct.
I said 40 or 41 or something on the show. On DK, I think it's higher on FanDuel, but I'll stick with that. 40, 41.
46. Jeez. This is the $10 top heavy tournament.
I assume we always use the largest, they're 8, 10, 12, whatever their biggest 300, 400K is. That's it. Let me tell you, people are getting on that stuff fast. Yeah, I'd probably still want more. He's starting in a great matchup. He's the absolute floor on DK, so that probably should be 60, 65 is where I'd be meh. So I'd probably still want more than that. Here's where I get a little dicey. There have to be, how many players are owned double digits? That's usually the way Josh starts this with me.
All right, how many players are owned double digits?
Oh, God damn you. Yeah, you are much better at making this challenging. I'm not going to spend the time to try to figure this, but it's only a 4-game slate, so just by random distribution, if I assign ownership to that, it would be like 10. So I'll suspect that it'll be over-owned on the early games with all the value. So I'll say 13.
You are correct. The baker's dozen.
It's 13?
It's 13.
I came to that number out of no. Okay.
All right. Well, and this is how
I honestly want to say I don't know how good I'd be at DFS anymore. I don't know how good I'd be at sports betting. If you listen to anyone who watched the show yesterday, apparently horrible at both of them. But if there was a game about guess ownerships when slates start, I'd play that for money. I'm up to play that for money with anyone. I'm going to ask one of you guys we need a co-host one of these times. And everyone sit back. You may notice I sit back and
oh yeah, no, I know it's official too.
I don't get near the computer. Yeah. I want to do this for like $1 a percentage point with somebody backgammon style. But, yeah.
All right, we've got there were 3 that were 9.4 to 9.8.
Then that's bullshit. So lucky me. I'm not going to guess the 9.4 to 9.8 guys.
I'll give you one of them. Kyle O'Quinn, 9.8.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, really, people? I mean, you need the blowout. I hope you get there. There's a very good chance of 0 minutes. Like, he probably backs up Al Horford. But not definitely, kids. Like, maybe they run their normal rotation. That means they just shift Mike Scott over, and they run Horford like Embiid shifts. Like, he probably plays 13 minutes and, probably will be just fine. And maybe you get the blowout, but 10% is too high with all the other great crap that opened up.
All right, Kevin Love is playing, right?
Kevin Love is probable as of the last, but I presume by this point. 2.5%. It's great.
That feels pretty good.
Feels wonderful. Feels wonderful. It's sketchy. It's obviously not 100%. There's all kinds of concerns. I don't want him in my cash lineup, but yeah, it's Kevin Love. You can go out there and grab 20 rebounds and 55 fan. Like, I'm a Kevin Love fan. Your comment about needing to showcase him for a trade is not irrelevant.
Yeah.
I think you also need to keep him healthy for a trade. So believe it or not,
absolutely,
I wouldn't change my projection for him, but I would increase the delta. Like, I think because of whenever there's any situation that is another modifier, generally it will increase the variance. So you're in a situation where, like, Kevin Love, if you get rid of having some sort of injury issue and get rid of being on the trade block, or widely reported as, would have a narrower range of outcomes, and his, Gaussian curve of these outcomes would be a little more tight. The more random crap you add, it may move the curve up and down, but it will also make the slopes a little more gentle, so that I think the floor is higher and the floor is lower and the ceiling is higher. These are not really, I don't think, to a statistically terribly relevant degree, nor am I comfortable trying to quantify such a thing, especially in just sort of common parlance. But Yeah, I would look at Kevin Love and say, yeah, I don't think I would change my projection versus, all the trade rumors, but I would say I think it increases the ceiling and lowers the floor. Just
all right.
not terribly actionable, but
a couple others, and then we got.
What is the ranking on? And don't just ask me back because I'm getting tired. What is the ranking on the 4 pieces of relevant Philadelphia value? What order do they come in? I'm pretty sure it'll be Korkmaz on top. Might be Scott
is first. No, it's a statistical tie between Korkmaz and Mike Scott at 13.7.
Yeah, I would prefer Korkmaz at this point, but at 13.7, interesting. Less than I thought. I thought Scott would get up to like 20-ish. So that's
Thibault's at 11, Kyle O'Quinn's at 9.8, Ennis is at 9.4.
I guess Kyle Quinn is the actual minimum, right? He was 3K.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, that's just not. I mean, so that's relevant. I'm saying when you get more of him than Ennis, like
Frankie Ntilikina was at 5. Alfred Payton was at 0.8. Dennis Smith Jr. at 0.8. Malcolm Brogdon 1.2.
That's been pretty. It's interesting how close the Malcolm Brogdon, Aaron Holiday statistical movements reflect the Isaiah Thomas, Ish Smith statistical movements of 2 Wizards games ago, where Brogdon and Thomas both, in my opinion, were likely to be owned in the 20% range. Both went out. Both were replaced with a very chalky, immediately became the best piece of value on the slate guy. Both those guys got significantly owned pretty quickly. Again, using the same frame of reference as the largest DK contest. I think we had Ish go to 54 immediately. Aaron Holiday, you said today was 46. 46 because I said 40. And both Ish and Brogdon, I believe Ish, because I got this, I think on the nose right on the show Isaiah was 1.5% owned. And that's, relevant when looking at your exposure. And you said Brogdon was just at 1.2% owned, which, so that is some sort of comparable trend. If you have a decent play point guard, not the best, both of them were, by price, 3rd highest. Isaiah Thomas was very good on FanDuel that night, but on DK, both tolerable plays. I think Isaiah was going to be 22% that night. I think Brogdon would have been a little less tonight, probably 14, 16. But about 10%, I guess about 7% of that ownership holds and turns into pure overlay for people not paying the hell attention. And just storing away some nuggets. I'm just talking about stuff I'm noticing.
Yep. This is a good question from Steve Samsel. If I subscribe to Osmo with their ownership tools, would I be able to find out, for instance, how many lineups played 2 specific guys in a specific tournament? I believe you can if you have the FC Pro lineup study. That's a great question. I'm almost positive, but that's a great question to ask at any of the NBA DFS shows. That's 9 a.m. or probably 9:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. They go into how to use that. Question here for the late slate from Premium Chat. Would you prefer Gobert, Harden, and Cam Johnson, or Bogdanovic? Hold on. Oh, good God, it's a 4-way. I'm going to send this to you because I want to give them an answer. We'll tweet it. We'll answer it in Slack for them, but I'll just send it in our direct one to you. And then last one here, we had... Oops, why can't I copy that? Okay, let me copy that. Someone put up Westbrook or Gobert, Rubio, Capella on FanDuel after hours. So
I can look at the other one. Was it also in our chat?
Yeah, I'm dropping it to you now.
Okay, I don't see it in the actual channel. Westbrook, Gobert, or Rubio, Capella on FanDuel after hours. I would play Westbrook and Gobert there. Don't Embiid my status showing us him watching the game from bed. That's nice. I think is what that looks like. Thoughts on playing Kyle O'Quinn tonight? Person in the premium slot. Hey, maybe he gets there. I mean, dude is minimum price. It's not crazy to imagine blowout other ways that he gets there. And again, the game is trending that way. So I don't think with all the extra value and the evident floor, 10% ownership was still too high. I don't think it was ever going to be like the 24 we had, but 10% was a bit too high still. Thanks, by the way, to the multiple people who send me tweets during the show about news and stuff, or forward tweets to me that stuff comes out. Doesn't harm anyone. I don't always get to it because, again, I have 4 monitors around me and 7 windows up right now, but it doesn't hurt anything. And if you're already there and want to send that along, I really appreciate it, because doing the best job I can, don't want to miss anything. So to those, and several people do it every day, I really appreciate it. Please continue to do so.
All right, this is for Blaze, I believe this is our Canadian friend who's now in premium chat. He asked,
Guillaume? Is it Guillaume?
I believe so.
I like Guillaume.
He's just.
I like Robert. Blaze. I like Robert Guillaume. You know Robert Guillaume.
I do know Robert Guillaume.
Benson.
I do.
Right? Am I getting that right? It's Benson,
you are.
Isn't it?
Would you go with Ingles and Gobert, or Jeff Green and Donovan Mitchell?
Ingles and Gobert.
All right.
I like me some Donovan Mitchell, but if I'm not playing him, playing Ingles is the most important thing I would want to be doing. And then I'll look at our. I'm gonna look at our individual chat. Gobert, Harden, Cam Johnson, and Bogdan, or Capella, Westbrook, Ingles, and Mitchell. I may not have an answer to this. I may wave the white flag at this.
When it got to 4, I got a little tough. I'm leaning the first one personally.
He's in the premium section. So he has access to our projections. They are close enough that I don't remember where it comes in on my projections. And I do think, Osmos or Adams or anyone else who publishes projections, I trust them more than my computerized projections, because my algorithm is something I use basically just to sort of get a start on things, and I haven't refined it that much, and it's not a huge part of my process. So I would say you've paid for some very nice projections. Add those numbers up, and best of luck with you. But I do have that very, very even. I am probably a little more towards Capella, Westbrook, Ingles, and Mitchell, just because Cam Johnson is the only one where I'm like, at this point in the slate. But I'll take the second quaternary at the moment. So actually, wait, quaternary would be an adjective. It's like primary, binary.
Only
tertiary.
thing I can think of is quaternary.
Ooh, yeah. Right now, are you referring to the musical style, or more the poetry? Oh, sure. The prose, if you will. That's lovely.
All right, we're getting out of here so I can still have 10 minutes to fix my messy lineups there. Or maybe I'll let it ride. We'll see what happens. But shout out to everybody for sticking around. We do have 3 straight hours of NFL content taking you up to lock tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m. And then we're going to have an on-air production meeting here. Ready? Let's see when is the main slate starting here? Are they including that 5 o'clock game? Or
do they have? Let me see if they're out yet.
Because I'm here. Thank you. I believe you had Rinpack with the 2 hour
main
special.
Yes, Rinpack and I did a couple hours. It was fun. Let's see. Main slate, I got DK, 6 p.m. already published on FanDuel.
Yep, DK 6 o'clock for 6 games. So we will go promptly at 5, and it will be served up for one fast Eddie Fair for tomorrow. It's NFL Sunday. The prize pools will be a little bit smaller, but we have Eddie, so we have the advantage. With that, gamers, thank you.
Okay, hold on a sec. Hold on. No, hold on a sec. I'm only asking. Sorry, I have clicked on DraftKings the slate for 6 p.m. tomorrow, and the largest current tournament is $10,000.
What they did last time is did they go to?
I just don't want to if people haven't clicked off yet, I don't want to misadvertise. I think Okay, I don't even.
Does it have the orange? Last week they waited to see what FanDuel did, and then they did the opposite.
Well, which seems odd, but
I was gonna say seems like a sharp move to me, but
okay. If I go all and sort, they just may not have.
They just haven't launched the prize pools, but that's their featured one, so they will be going at 6 o'clock. We will be going at 5. So with that, gamers, you can follow Eddie at FastEddieFair on Twitter. I am at EMACDFS, and of course, it is Osmo_COM. If there are any updates, that's where you'll find it. With that, good luck.